Good morning, everybody. Our chairman has texted me that he has a little bit of a family emergency and he is on his way. However, normally I would just open the hearing and I would proceed. My understanding is somebody has reached out to him and he wants to talk with that person. So I'm opening this hearing and we will be in recess. I'm not allowed to say for about 20 minutes. So we will be in recess, and if y'all just want to like stand by, I would say come back if you have something that you need to do, or if you need to go wander a little bit. I would be back about 20 after 10. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I apologize for my lateness. I had a college student who happens to be my son I had to attend to. With that, we're going to begin our continued hearings on bills that we have retained. If you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance before we begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Actually, my test every day. I'm losing my memory. I believe we have a citizen who, please, please approach the table and sit at the mic, identify yourself, push the button first till the light's red. For the benefit of the committee, this is a citizen who emailed me last night or yesterday and requested to be heard, and I do not deny citizens. I had said we were done taking testimony, but that was for lobbyists, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you for letting me be here. Being able to tell my story to people that might have some type of authority is very important. A little bit about myself. My name is Mary Ann Jock. I am a lifelong resident of the North Country of New Hampshire. I grew up in Lisbon, New Hampshire, lived for 15 years in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. My husband is also from the North Country. I was a public school teacher in New Hampshire, teaching junior high and high school for 15 years. My husband owns his own business. Currently, I am out of the teaching profession and I am a career novelist. And I am also currently the elected president of Romance Writers of America, which is the only trade organization for that industry in the United States. So I am well aware of the importance of all of these things. The reason why I took the position there was to help increase diversity and inclusion within the romance industry, but the publishing industry as a whole. So, why am I here? I am here because in October of 2021, my tiny little street of 8 houses, Dead End Street in Lisbon, New Hampshire, was turned upside down. We had a family that moved in, and we did not know at the time that the husband in the family was about to be let out on parole for the current charge that he was serving time for was extortion of the Elliott Hospital. And that was after a long line of time in the system. He is 52 years old. He has more convictions, and many of them felonies, than he has years of life. He understands the justice system. He could probably give any lawyer a run for their money as far as what he can and cannot get away with. The unfortunate thing is I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, raised by family that were lifetime New Hampshire residents, with a work ethic, a belief in volunteering, and a belief in if you see something that you can make better, you should do that. I don't know the system. I've never been in the system. I've never had to deal with the justice system. I was raised with the belief that the justice system was put in place to protect citizens that followed the rules. And that if I ever got into a position where I needed somebody to protect me and help me, that law enforcement would be able to do that because they protect their citizens. That's their job. I have since learned that the system is not there to do that, because in order to have a system that works for you, you have to be educated in that system. And as a law-abiding citizen who never had to deal with it, I never had to educate myself about it. We have been told repeatedly by the police that anything they could do would not be enough, and there's no point in doing it until he is violent. And I fully trust that the police are doing everything they can. This man
Ma'am,
calls, yeah.
could you tell us what he did since moving in that caused this?
what hasn't he done? One of the things that is terribly upsetting, and I'm sure all of you, most of you maybe have the same experience, that the idea of living in a place where people just start screaming swears and veiled threats and not so veiled threats through the neighborhood is something that happens on a TV show in New York City in you know a very low socioeconomic area. This is our daily reality. He, when he first moved in, started screaming that he was going to burn all our houses down, that he was going to have his buddies come and take care of us. He has the tendency right now, he focuses on me. I refuse to allow him to make me a victim, and therefore I will not react to anything he does. But that just puts the focus more on me. We did have a safety net with him being on parole because he many times violated his parole and ended up going back to prison. The first time it was like 30 days, then it was 60 days, and then I believe this last stint was 3 months. When he came back from his parole this last time, he had finished serving out his sentence. He is no longer on parole and under supervision. And 2 days after he came back, he stood in the middle of our street and screamed up the street that there was nobody to protect us now. And we could call the cops all we wanted, but he would just go and pay his $30 or $40 and be home in 2 hours to continue what he was doing. We, again, have talked repeatedly to the police, and they say, call. They say, we have at my house what I call the book of, and I'm not going to say his first name, but we have been keeping that and recording the things that he does and the things that he screams. We have had to buy security cameras and put no trespassing signs on our house. I work from home. I am usually the only one on the street during the day by myself. I have to have my house locked all the time because he knows I'm home alone and he knows that there's nobody else on the street. He does not work. Nobody in the house works. Currently, we're in a situation where he's also abusing the stalking and harassment order process. He has stalking and harassment orders out on my husband and myself. Conveniently, my husband is a hunter, and it just happens to be opening day next Wednesday, and my husband has had to relinquish all of his guns to the police department because as soon as there's a stalking or harassment order put on you for safety reasons, they do that. And we both understand why stalking and harassment and restraint orders are set up that way. And in a perfect system where somebody is not abusing it and using it by proxy to torment or harass good citizens, I understand why it works. I own a shotgun because I used to go bird hunting. I now own a Sig Sauer Pro of my own that I make sure is between myself and my front door every single day at home in a tiny little dead-end street in Lisbon, New Hampshire that has 8 houses on it that I grew up in. The house I own now is 4 generations in my family. And I'm actually considering, is it worth it to keep it? And the reason why I'm here today is because, first off, I do not believe in just accepting my lot in life. There's always a solution. There's always a better way. And in trying to learn what we need to do in this system, because we don't know, the police can only tell us what they know. Parole can only tell us what they know. And for some reason, one hand does not know what the other is doing most of the time. And I called the parole department for Grafton County. And again, I'm not going to say names. I'm not here to point any fingers, but I talked to somebody in charge there. And that person did not know anything about me other than that I had this particular person living next to me and that I was clearly a woman. The first 5 minutes of the conversation literally went like I was wasting this man's time. And he treated me, and excuse the term, but it's the only way I could think of what I was in his mind, that I was the crack whore next door in the slum house, and that I was just completely wasting his time. And I took a breath and I said, let us get something straight. I probably have more college degrees than you. I definitely have a better vocabulary than you. And I do not live in a place where I also have warrants out for my arrest. I have power in my voice, and you need to listen to me because I'm a citizen. And he did change his attitude a little bit. I did not get any further answers. The only answers I got was that he actually wasn't even aware of the provisions of him being out on parole. I only knew them because I had gone to the bail hearing, or not the bail hearing, the parole hearing. My husband and I have made it a point to go to all of those parole hearings because it was the only way we could learn anything and know how to protect ourselves in this situation. As an independent who swings very liberal, I appreciate the intent in bail law. I do not believe that people with a first offense, or somebody that's in the wrong place at the wrong time, or God forbid, a teenager that has had trauma that's trying to work through it, deserves to be sitting in a jail cell for months on end before they have a chance to have a hearing. I understand the intent of bail reform. The follow through and the reality of it leaves a lot to be desired. And I think it has not come to light because most people here, and most people that feel that their vote has something to do or has some power in this state, have not had to live surrounded by these people that are taking the bail reform and throwing it back in the state's face. Those are the people that don't have the voice, that feel like they don't have the power. And I do. I can come in here and I can speak to all of you on an even level and understand that my voice does matter. So I said I wasn't going to cry. It's more rage cry. Women in here probably understand the whole thing. But you know, it's just frustrating because I'm scared in my own home. And the police have basically said, until he hurts somebody and it's a felony level offense and there's blood involved, we can't do much other than show up and record it and go home. So my next step is to go to the people that make the decisions and tell you my story, so you understand that this is a serious problem. His mental illness, whatever it may be, should not trump my own mental health and sense of safety inside my own home.
Ma'am, could you tell us what you would like to see us do as far as this goes related to bail?
You know, from what I've been told by law enforcement, now that he's out on parole, he's basically, it's kind of a clean slate. That one thing doesn't, he can be pulled in for one thing this week and pays his bail and goes home, and he can have something happen next week and he goes and pays his bail and goes home. And there's no, okay, well, you've been in here 4 times this week with chargeable misdemeanors. You know, maybe maybe you need to stay until you can see a judge. Maybe after 4 misdemeanors, you know, we bump it up to a felony charge. I do not know, because I have not done all of the research, but I do know that he's not only causing my family financial hardship, because we're having to pay for surveillance cameras. I've had to buy a dash camera. I've had to buy a handgun. We just had to get our lawyer involved because of these restraining orders. And it's just an ongoing thing. And I know 100% that it's putting a strain on the municipality of the town, because he's not the only one in town that does this. We have 4 full-time police officers, and they right now have 400 open cases in tiny little Lisbon, New Hampshire. And I'm a taxpayer, so I fully know how much this ridiculousness is costing me as a taxpayer and my town. We can't do things that we would want for the citizens of the town because we have to put our money over here. And it just feels like every single place I look, they're just chasing their tails and there's nothing happening.
Could you tell us what the status is? How did you already have a hearing in court on the stalking orders he got against your husband?
We have had stalking orders in the past on us. The first one was dropped before the hearing even happened. The second one, I got to the courthouse with my lawyer. I walked in, and his wife, because he was in prison at the time, his wife dropped the suit or dropped the order before the hearing started in there. This one, because hunting season starts on Wednesday and he's supposed to be leaving Sunday for hunting camp, we went to the court yesterday and asked for a quicker hearing, and we have a hearing on Tuesday that we will have our lawyer at. And I've been compiling surveillance videos and writing up my statements and doing everything that I shouldn't be doing because I have other more pressing things to do.
Okay, so the order that's in place now against your husband or both of you is just the temporary order until it gets to the
What
court?
happens is when you have a stalking or harassment order put against you, immediately, first off, you lose your Second Amendment rights. And whatever the plaintiff wrote in the stalking order about what they want the defendant to have to follow, if the judge chooses to sign off on it without any proof of that behavior at all, that is that. So I can't go 300 feet towards his house, which it is now November. I don't go out into my yard until it's 70 degrees again, so that doesn't impact me at all. I have to drive past his house to get off my street. It's a dead-end street. So for a while, the first time, that was a question whether I was even going to be able to leave my house. If he's outside and I'm on my property, I have to go inside because my house is not 300 feet from his house. He wanted us to take down our surveillance cameras because he says they're shining into his house. All of the police in town have seen surveillance camera. His lawyer has seen surveillance footage from that. The parole board has seen surveillance footage from that. Nobody has said that it's illegal. So we have refused to take down the camera, and the police have looked at it live and said, no, you can't see in there. So we haven't done that. Again, my husband had to give up all of his guns. And that goes into effect immediately when the police show up at your house. And then that stays in effect until you get to the hearing. And then the judge decides if it's going to stay in effect for 365 days or not.
Did the judge who signed off on this, is he the same one who was sitting on the cases that were dismissed before they were started?
No, that's the other problem, is that, again, one hand does not know what the other hand is doing. So this is a new judge in the circuit court. And so they probably have no context for what this person is. Because we have been told by the police, you know, once this happens a couple of times, the judge is going to get wise to it and they won't approve it. But again, you know, there's a new judge. Now we have to start this all over again.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Yes.
Representative Muse.
Sorry, my old teacher came out on me. Put your hand up, I'll call on you.
Thanks for coming in to testify.
Yeah.
You had said that there have been at least one occasion where he's been arrested multiple times on misdemeanor charges in the neighborhood. What were the charges and what were the circumstances that were involved in that?
Most recently, and he actually, I don't believe, has gotten the arrest warrant yet. They were working on it. Him and his wife egged my neighbor's car, which was caught on my surveillance camera. He has been charged with disorderly conduct, destruction of property. The last thing that sent him away because of a parole violation was he moved a property pin, and it was caught on camera that he moved the pin and took it completely out of the ground and walked away with it. Threatening, a lot of threatening, but the police, as overwhelmed as they are, you know, it's to their discretion to decide if it's a chargeable offense, and it's paperwork, and it's a lot of paperwork, and it's time that they aren't spending on more important things. I understand that in the grand scheme of things, my inconvenience as a citizen is not as important as somebody else's trauma. But, you know, so a lot of the things that we fill out statements for, it doesn't really go anywhere. So, but I believe the last time he had a total of 17 charges when he ended up violating parole, and this was in the span of like a couple of months, because he come out of parole or out of jail on parole, and within a couple of months it was like 17 charges.
Could you narrow it down though to the times where he was arrested for a misdemeanor and bailed and then rearrested and bailed? Do you have?
We don't get that information really. You know, we will put in a statement.
Mhm.
And I know there was one time, and it's the statute of limitations is probably cleared on this because it was early on when they first moved here. He had his wife get in the car and drive to the end of our street at a very high rate of speed. And again, we're at a dead end street. The woman that lives at the end of the street is a single mother with a teenage daughter. And he started screaming at her in the driveway that she better sleep with one eye open and that she has to leave her house sometime. And on his way back down the road, our other neighbor had come out to see if he had to go up and help our neighbor at all. And as he's coming down the street in the car, his wife is driving, he's got the door open, he's screaming, run him over, hit him, run him over, hit him, as they're coming down the street. He did get charged with that, but I do not know where that went. So I can't tell you how many times he's actually been arrested, because to be perfectly honest, it's not something that happens in a clear span of time. I mean, he egged the car Sunday. They still haven't gotten the arrest warrant completely figured out and approved. So they could show up Friday or call him and say, you need to come down to the PD and sign paperwork, and he pays his bail and he comes home, and we are none the wiser.
Okay. Further questions? Representative Stone.
Thank you. One of the questions that I have is, has your husband had a final hearing on the stalking order?
No, that's going to be Tuesday.
And are you
We've had one before, and well, not a hearing, because it's always been dropped before the hearing comes.
follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Should follow up.
Do you feel that this process of him seeking out a stalking order has been weaponized against you and your husband?
Yes, 100%.
Thank you.
Representative Muse. Okay. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much. I know you had a long drive down here, and we are definitely going to take your testimony into consideration as we debate and sort through these bills.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me the time, and thank you for the work that you do here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we're going to just take a 10 minutes, actually 10 minutes, and we're going to get ready to, when we reconvene in 10 minutes, we're going to start working on the bail commissioner pay issue, the bail commissioner training issue, the bail commissioner ID issue, and we're going to put that in one of the bills that we have retained. And I'm going to take a minute and meet with Linda and figure that out. Okay, we are ready to begin for the members of the subcommittee. After having conferred with Representative Harry Gathright, this is what we're going to propose to the committee for your consideration. We are considering using House Bill 318 as a vehicle to make the following changes. RSA 597-2B, we are going to increase the fee for bail commissioners from $40 to $50. We are going to mandate that the court reimburse or pay the bail commissioners monthly for any bails done within the previous month. We are going to authorize the court to collect that from the defendants. Regardless of their indigency or not, the court can make a determination whether or not they can pay and over how much time they need. For example, if someone's indigent, the court could say, okay, you have 2 years to pay the $50. The court is also free to waive it if they so choose. It's their budget. Also, RSA 597-18A, we're going to mandate 16 hours of initial training for all new bail commissioners and 8 hours annually for all bail commissioners to be paid by the court at $50 per day for each bail commissioner. We will be getting, there's going to be fiscal notes to these, and we'll be asking for the money to cover this until the next budget, the next biennium, at which point the court will put it in their budget. And finally, 597-17, we are going to mandate that the court, either themselves or in an agreement with the DMV, issue a durable, hard picture identification to all bail commissioners that they will get upon their appointment. And that's what we're going to do with regard to the bail commissioners. And now that's open for discussion. Anybody have any questions or points on the committee? Everyone, Representative Reed.
Thank you. What about the access to the computer system? Will they eventually be able to access information on the
Yeah.
network?
We're going to, I'm in talking to the representatives from the court now about how that would work. I don't know that we're ready to put it in statute right now because I don't think that the infrastructure is quite there yet. We are going to address what we addressed last year with getting the money for the police departments to be able to access it. So at the very least, they'll be able to show the bail commissioner the records there. So the key part of that is informing a bail commissioner if somebody's already out on bail when they come to bail them so that they can make an informed decision. And we're going to address that by, at least in the short term, by ensuring the police have access to all that information. So I'm still trying to figure that out with the court, but we are going to address it. This Representative Rhodes and then Representative Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one thing that I just wanted to bring up was, we heard so much about training of the bail commissioners, and going through my handy dandy little notebook. It's interesting because there actually is, I think, a 3-paragraph section where it is already a law that the bail commissioner is supposed to get paid, but somewhere along the way, it appears that has just been completely disregarded. So we're not actually changing anything. We're just adding to that about minimum hours and so forth. So I
You
think
mean
just-
trained, not paid.
that is exactly what I meant. Thank you. So, if you guys are looking in there and you see that, you may be as surprised as we were to see that it already is a law. But we just, tweaked a little bit of it. We didn't take anything out of that.
And also, we are going to add that the Supreme Court Chief Justice, or whoever their designee is, reports annually to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House on the status of the bail commissioners with regard to how many there are, their annual training is complied with, et cetera, so that in the legislature we have eyes on at least what's going on and the status of all the bail commissioners in the state. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes, we also added Judiciary and Criminal Justice Committee as well.
Yeah, we
Report back.
were going to add the Judiciary Criminal Justice Committee and the equivalent in the Senate, as well as the President and the Speaker. And I think that about covers it. Any further, Representative Wheeler, sorry.
The only thing I wanted to uplift, Mr. Chairman, is that we heard a lot from the bail commissioners that came to testify that there was a lack of standardization in the system when it came to the bail commissioners. And I think that our adding the 8 hours of annual training for them to be able to look at the statutes and look through it will actually really help in standardizing the system and making it so that no one's getting out based on a statute that is in the law and should be keeping them in.
And that's a good point. I think that often when we do laws, we have to write to the lowest common denominator, and we know that some courts and some bail commissioners they have excellent programs. The judges have excellent training, and some, from our testimony we heard, it's kind of the Wild West. So we have to write for the Wild West, and some bail commissioners may feel this isn't necessary, but others do, so we're going to make sure that everyone gets it at least. Representative Guthrie.
Did you mention that any law changes during the year?
Oh, yeah, also, my notes are lacking. In that training, it would say 8 hours annually, 16 initial, and any changes to the law occurring during the year that are driven by a court decision or new action of the legislature. So, for example, if they just had their 8 hours of training, 2 months later, a court decision comes down from the Supreme Court addressing bail, they would have to be called back and retrained on that. But I don't know that we're going to put in statute that it has to be in-person physical for an update like that. It could just be that whoever's in charge, we just have to put in there that they will be trained on any updates. Because I don't want to put that burden on the court or the magistrates to have to go in again just to hear about one case. But we will mandate that they do be trained on it. Representative Muse?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One of the things that we've done for workers in other situations where, you know, retention is an issue, not just attraction, is set it up so that people can receive retention bonuses or rewards or something like that. It would be nice to see something like that included in here. Another issue is who actually oversees this? You know, and I think it's something that we raised earlier.
It's right.
Perhaps creating a part-time position. In the
I think I
court.
have an answer for you before
Okay.
we get too further. We are discussions right now, Representative Gathright and I, with the courts, and we are looking at potential for actually bringing in magistrates to, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because this is a separate statute we're going to be dealing with in the next couple days, that would oversee bail commissioners within their region. In other words, we're not replacing bail commissioners. We're going to be adding a position that's going to have certain other duties, but they would be in charge. That way you don't have one person trying to oversee all of them in the state. Each geographic region will know how many bail commissioners they have in their region. They'll be responsible for training and reporting back to the court that they have complied with the training, et cetera. So we're going to make sure there's a chain of answerability as far as that goes. But I don't want to get too far ahead of that yet.
Just a quick
Yeah,
follow-up. One of the bills that we've retained that's in front of us is HB 318, which would actually eliminate bail commissioners. One of the things we might want to consider doing is just quickly execing that.
No, we're using that as the vehicle for
Oh, we're
this.
using that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna amend that, and since it's fairly germane, we're going to just go ahead and change it. Representative Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to say that the bail commissioner system that we currently use never have been thought of to be abandoned. I think these compromises operationally will put us back on track where we should be. And I think the bail commissioners that we currently have really endured a lot over the last decade or so of serving the taxpayers of New Hampshire very fiscally. And I support all these changes.
Thank you, Representative Stone. I agree totally. I think that the system as it is would crumble without the bail commissioners. They're an intricate and necessary part. And as long as I'm here, we won't be considering getting rid of them at all. But we will make sure that they finally get paid, and we will make sure that there is consistent training across the board for all of them. Did you raise your hand, Representative? As long as you're not going to shoot down our ideas, otherwise you're going to have to wait till it's. You can nibble. Go ahead, nibble. Nibble away.
Time to nibble?
Yes. go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You asked about day-to-day supervision of bail commissioners. Fine if you want magistrates, but the de facto, the way that's done is the clerk of the court does that.
Yep.
And I am routinely spanked for a form that's not right, or I didn't use. It's never really a judgment call. That's really not. It's mostly a technical issue. I am not a supporter of increasing the pay. What I am a big fan of is getting them paid. I don't think that their complaint is whether it's 40 or 50. The complaint is that they're not paid. So that I think we may be overreaching, and that's a nibble. Another perhaps nibble that is a much more personal one, and it's this: whether I was on eDNA or here, I do not like fixed hours. We're going to come 8 hours a year, and what are we going to do? I'd like to ask for input from the court, what they think before we carve this in stone. Is 16 the right number of hours for the initial? I don't really worry too much about the initial. I like the court to pass on that before we say it. I'd like to see something like a minimum of 4 hours, and for yearly. Because
Allow me just to interrupt, because it's my fault for not saying it first. This structure came up with in conjunction with the court, speaking with the court's representative, Erin. I forgot her name. Pardon me. The hours, the money, the training, all of it was in conjunction, talking with the courts. So
all right.
no vacuums, but I agree though. 16, in discussion, there may not be 16. Well, 16, there's certainly enough 2 days training for a new bail commissioner. The 8 hours, and they can use it to shadow. They can use it however they want. Also, the 8 hours annually, even if there's only 4 hours worth of talking, I think getting the bail commissioners together for a couple hours from the various regions to talk to each other, share best practices. I don't think anything bad can come from them actually getting together and seeing each other.
I just want that to be a serious thing, because if you have 2 hours of talk and 4 hours to fill, now you're maybe trivializing the thing.
I agree.
And that's really what's at the bottom of my concern. I want that to be meaty time. In fact, the 16 hours, if that's going to include laboratory time, I know the bail commissioner I trained, actually he's probably better, he's a very good one. He came with me, and I'm talking 20 hours. I mean, he was with me for many bails, and I'm talking about, I couldn't wake him. He didn't mind being awake, or he never admitted objecting to be awakened at night. One final note. All right, my nibbles aren't, you're defanging me, and I don't like it, but
I know.
anyway.
I do everything in anticipation of your bites.
We just had our bail commissioners meeting, and I'm a little put out at it. We had 2 judges. One wanted to be engaged and involved. The other, it was his birthday. He wanted to get out of there. He was not welcoming questions that I had. And I said, you might like to hear what's going on with the Criminal Justice Committee. Nope, if it's not an RSA, I don't want to hear it. What? That was the attitude of a judge. You'd think that he would want to know what's rustling, what's happening. And
Yeah.
I don't want to, my feelings were hurt, but they were a little hurt.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly disrespectful, I would think.
Yeah, it just wasn't. Anyway, a little glimpse into my world of about 2 weeks ago. Anyway, thank you for listening.
And thank you for sharing. Representative Wheeler, and then Representative Means. Excuse me, Wheeler. Representative Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I had muffins on my mind.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
the hairs and stuff.
In regards to the hours, I think the hours are okay being allotted, and I certainly don't want to see anything micromanage the judiciary, and that I have a feeling they can be responsible enough to dictate the hours of how they want to break them down within that year for training.
Yeah, and I think Representative Sytek's suggestion is actually very good, that we put in there that at least some of that should be used to shadow on some bails, because that hearing about it in the class versus actually getting out there in the field and seeing it is totally different experience. So I think that is important, and we will take that under advisement as we draft this. Representative Muse.
Yeah, one hopefully minor issue that I hope we can address is allowing the court to collect regardless of indigency for up to 2 years kind of fires a torpedo into the whole concept of indigency. It's, people basically can't pay.
Yeah.
And as a practical matter, when we're talking $40 or $50, chasing people for 2 years to pay $40 or $50 might not be the most efficient use of the court system's time.
That's why I think that we're going to leave it up to them to decide if they want to pursue that. But if you start talking about, 400, 500, 600 defendants with $50 in per year, it adds up to a significant amount of money that would be coming out of their budget. But we will leave it up to them to say, we will say if they're indigent, the court may waive. I don't want, because someone may be indigent today and get a job 6 months from now, and they could pay that $50 that they owe the state. So that's why I'm leaving it up to the court. And the 2 years was just a number I picked. That we don't have to put any time limit. I want to leave it with them with the ability to decide this person can now pay or they just can't. And for us to do it from here, we could be hurting their budget and our budget, because someone could have a job 6 weeks later and easily pay the $50, and it was waived 6 months ago, and now they're off the hook on it, and the taxpayers have to pick it up. So I feel like if we leave the court the room to make the decision, I trust that they'll make the right decision as to whether or not someone's, you get someone homeless who has mental health issues, they're never going to get $50. And I'm hoping the court will be wise enough to see that and not pursue it. So if we leave in there, the court may waive when a defendant is found indigent, or pursue it at a later date.
But there's nothing in the changes that we'd be doing that would actually keep an indigent person who can't afford a bail commissioner from actually using a bail
Oh,
commissioner.
no, no.
Okay,
No, absolutely not. They get the bail coming. All that's taken care of after the fact.
thank you.
Yeah. Representative Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so to Representative Muse's question, we do have that written out more specifically here.
Yeah. Better than I rambled
And,
it.
the court is authorized to make the determination whether or not they have to pay or not. But I think the thing to keep in mind is, what we're saying here is not the entire bill that has to be written, because there's a lot of areas where one thing is going to override another, and that's the attorneys are going to help us with that. And Chairman Roy and I met last week after our House session with the attorney that's actually was assigned to this specifically to help us, and already has a list of all the RSAs we're looking at, because a lot of them are intertwined. And I think the other thing that I would like to stress for everybody to keep in mind is we heard from a whole lot of people. And there is not one single thing that every person in this room is going to love every single part of. We are really trying to go to the entire state of what is best for every single person, not just the people in this room or a couple of the people that testified, every single person, because all 10 counties are completely different and need something a little bit different. And remember, we have a whole nother body that we have to also get this passed, and then a corner office. So I think the thing to keep in mind when we're doing this is we're not all going to get everything we want. We're not going to get everything out that we don't want. Representative Gathright and I back there had to, go into our separate corners for a minute, but that's to be expected. But we still came up with language that we both could agree on, thinking that we all could agree on that. So when we're moving forward, I would just ask everybody to please keep that in mind. It's not about one single person or one county. It's about all 10. And the last thing we want is the taxpayers to have to be paying for somebody's bail commissioner fees. So we need to make it work for everybody. I'm done with my rant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would just say that I would like the ability for the court to get it if they can, and if you can't get blood from a stone, so I don't want the court going after someone who has not the ability to pay. So I think that we just have, I mean, we trust them whether or not to send someone to jail. We should be able to trust them whether or not to go after money from a person who cannot afford it. And I would think that they're certainly wise enough to make that decision. We just want to leave them latitude. Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you know if right now, if someone is unable to pay that fee, like, or they're released, like they have unpaid fees, if they can then be like arrested again for not paying those fees?
I do not believe so. Representative Sitek, do you have any insight into that?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but
If-
you are bailed no matter what.
Yeah, but can you be, have you ever heard of so when someone's determined indigent by the court, they don't go after the bail fee later and someone be arrested for failure
I've
to
never
pay?
heard of that.
Yeah, nor have I. It's my understanding that once you're determined indigent, it's just written off. But at the same time, the bail commissioners aren't getting paid. So, because that's where they get their money from. Now we're putting that onus on the court to say, you're paying the bail commissioners, and if you decide to waive the money, that's on you. That's your budget. With the allowance that if someone is indigent, the court can waive that. Representative Wheeler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say it's important if someone's indigent and that we make sure that we are being compassionate if someone doesn't have enough funds. But it's also important that to note bail commissioners are doing a incredibly important service, and they're driving far distances at late hours to be able to go out and do what you said. This is a very critical piece to our system here, and they need to be paid. So I think that's sort of
Yeah, we
the
got to try
lost
and
point.
balance
Yeah,
that somehow.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, agreed. And also just to address what Representative Sitek about, he wasn't a big fan of the raise. We heard a lot about, the distances some of these folks have to drive. The price of gasoline is ridiculous right now. Rather than getting into a system where they were reimbursed for mileage, you'd have to hire employees just to track the mileage. It's much easier to say, okay, we're going to bump it to $50. It hasn't been raised since inflation has been spiking. So frankly, I don't think $10 is that big a deal, and it's in line with what other states are charging too. So further questions, comments? Okay, what I'd like to do now is hold an informal vote. If everyone's in favor,
Mr.
then.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick note from the field. As somebody who has bailed indigent people, that's not a problem. I don't mind that at all. You do that for the team. And
Yeah.
he's still Mr. Jones, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
despite many issues. I'll tell you what real bail commissioners resent. I'm not sure we're going to do anything here, but when you know a defendant knows he cannot be bailed and he still asks for a bail commissioner to come in and say that. He doesn't have the money, but he just wants to cycle you. That it isn't a good faith indigent. It's a guy. It doesn't happen often,
Explain
but
how he knows he can't be bailed.
because there may be a bench warrant for him.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, based on what the police have said, there are no circumstances under which I want to let this person out without having seen a judge.
Okay.
So I want them to ask to decline a bail commissioner and see a judge in the morning because I'm not comfortable letting this person out. And I tell them that. You're not allowed to set a bail by phone, but there are some black and white situations where you just know. I want to see a bail commissioner. I come in, I say, I've told you this. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
I want my bail. He had no money, by the way. It isn't, in that case, it's not the money. I'm telling you, I don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm wasting time now. I don't mind indigent. That's a human being. This guy his life is lost. I'm going to go home to a warm bed. This guy where is his life going? It's very easy to not to be resentful of that. It's the people jerking the system around that are the annoying. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Fortunately, I don't know that there's anything we can do about that other than try to raise better children. Representative Muse.
Yeah, one last thing. One thing that would be good to do would be to put something in here that makes telehearings more of an option. Those are that's something that we actually considered as an experiment pre-COVID when we had the original Commission on Bail Commissioner Pay.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we learned kind of during the whole COVID experience was that was something that actually works. So one of the things we heard from some of the, some of the police officers and some of the county jail personnel were just times when bail commissioners simply aren't available. And as much as we'd like to try and resolve the attraction and retention situation, there are going to continue to be times when having a bail commission, basically not having a bail commissioner could mean that somebody is sitting in jail longer than they need to be sitting in jail. So, one of the things that, that I would, that I think maybe we should consider part of this is actually making telehearings, basically putting them on equal footing.
I'm correct me if I'm wrong. One of the bail commissioners that testified, she said that she was still doing telephonic bail hearings. She did them during COVID, and she's still. So I'm not sure that anywhere in statute it's prohibited from conducting a bail hearing via telephone. Representative Stone?
I would think that this is getting kind of out of the weeds of what we're looking at currently. And I think at this point, we should focus back on the core issues operationally. If the court seems in emergency orders situation where the governor may declare one, I think that should be handled at a discretionary by the judiciary and not by legislative codified.
No, I just, if Representative Muse's point just struck me that if it's prohibited, I would not object to saying the court may, if it so chooses, conduct or authorize the conduction due to a shortage in staff or something like that, allow them to do it. But if it's not blocked already, it seems to me they're allowed to do it.
It seems like a moot point.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so can I just get by a show of hands, all in favor of us sending what we just discussed over to the LOB to be drafted so that we can have an actual real vote on it, hopefully tomorrow? All in favor? Good. Everyone, let the record reflect. Everyone, let the record reflect. Everyone voted yes. And we will send this over to Legislative Services today, and we will vote on it tomorrow to send to the full committee. And with that, we are going to close for the day. Tomorrow is going to be a little more in-depth and probably plan on being here a little bit longer. We're going to start delving into the actual issue of re-offending while on bail tomorrow. That one might not go as smoothly, but I'm hoping it will. And next week, we're going to get into what I discussed with Representative Muse a second ago about the management and supervision and the dreaded 13 crimes list from the Senate. Anyone have anything before we go? Representative Murray.
Just really quickly for the committee, I wanted to let you know I kind of summarized all of the minutes from the past few weeks and gave you each a sheet. And I also sent it via email because at the bottom I hyperlinked the minutes to every hearing so you can see the full minutes as well. And I made a list of everybody who testified. The only date this doesn't include is the 20th because I wasn't present for that and I don't have the minutes.
Wow, thank you.
Representative Murray, you are without a doubt the best clerk I've even ever heard of.
Jeez.
And I don't, maybe it's not for me to say, but I just want to congratulate Representative Murray on her new nuptials. May you have many years of happiness. With that, we are closed for the day, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. or thereabouts.